After saving for 5 years, I opened my restaurant and invited everyone in my family. They attended my sister's party instead. When I closed up alone, Dad wrote, "Hold off on being mad, we need you." The champagne bottles rested untouched on the bar, sweat gathering underneath them like little puddles of letdowns, and I kept thinking about how I'd bought a full dozen, one for every relative plus extras for the friends they were bound to drag along. The place was completely empty except for me and Eddie, my sous chef, who kept flicking his eyes from his phone to me with that pitying look I'd grown to despise during the last 3 hours. "They're probably just running late," he offered weakly while scrubbing the same patch of counter for what had to be the 4th time. And I didn't bother answering because what could I possibly say? That every single one of my family members promised they'd show, that my mom had even helped me pick this deep green dress I had on, a dress that now felt like a costume for a show nobody wanted to attend, that my sister Hannah had literally texted yesterday saying she couldn't wait for today, and that she was proud of me, complete with 3 heart emojis. I'd marked the grand opening of Sage in Time on my calendar for 1,726 days. And I know that number by heart because I counted each one through 5 years of double shifts in other people's kitchens, short nights, no vacations, and wearing the same 3 outfits over and over since every spare cent went straight into my savings. 5 years of trying out new recipes and celebrating tiny personal wins no one ever saw because I was always alone. When my phone finally buzzed, I snatched it up so fast I almost knocked a champagne bottle over, only to see a message that started with, "Dad, before you get mad, we need you to understand something," and my stomach just sank. I stared at those typing dots blinking in and out for what felt like forever until the rest appeared. "Dad, Hannah's engagement party got moved to today last minute, since the venue had a cancellation. We're all at the Riverside Inn. Come hang out after you close up. She's family too." I read it again and again, hoping it would magically say something else, and when Eddie noticed I'd gone still, he stopped pretending to clean and asked if everything was all right. "They're not coming," I said, surprised at how hollow my voice sounded, and when he tried to ask about anyone else, I held up my hand because I needed quiet, even though trying to think felt impossible with rage thickening in my chest like boiling tar. More messages rolled in, my mom saying they'd stop by tomorrow for lunch with the same 3 hearts Hannah used, my brother Ryan apologizing and claiming Hannah had pulled the family card, Aunt Marcy insisting she was at the engagement party and asking when my thing was happening even though I'd called her twice this week to confirm she'd be here. My thing. My dream. Then the timers for the hors d'oeuvres started going off one after another like some kind of cruel soundtrack, and all I could think about was the spread I'd made for 40 people. Crab cakes with homemade remoulade, prosciutto-wrapped asparagus drizzled with balsamic, tiny caprese skewers I'd fussed over for hours to make perfect, and beef Wellington bites I'd practiced for weeks. "Want me to start packing this up?" Eddie asked gently. But something in me snapped into place and I told him no with a firmness that surprised us both. "Call everyone you know," I said. "Tell them Sage in Time has free food and drinks for the next 2 hours. Friends, neighbors, family. That guy who always begs you for cigarettes outside the subway, everyone." Eddie lit up and said, "Now we're talking," and sure enough, within half an hour the place was overflowing with strangers who turned into the best crowd I could have hoped for. Eddie's girlfriend brought her whole book club. The older couple from the flower shop next door shuffled in with their grandson. A bunch of college kids celebrated like they'd hit the jackpot when they heard free champagne, and took pictures of every dish like this was some red carpet event. A woman named Patricia, who ran the vintage store down the street, cornered me to rave about the crab cakes and asked if I was hiring because her nephew had just finished culinary school. "Tell him to bring a resume Monday," I told her, and I meant it. The food disappeared, the champagne finally got popped open. Someone switched the music to jazz even though I'd spent weeks curating the perfect dinner playlist, and people kept telling me the place was destined to become the next neighborhood favorite. And for a little while, I almost didn't feel the enormous family-shaped emptiness sitting in my chest. Almost. After everyone said goodnight and Eddie insisted on helping me clean, I finally sat at the bar and checked my phone again, only to find the family group chat overflowing with photos from Hannah's engagement party, shots of the riverside, the gorgeous gardens, close-ups of her ring, a massive emerald-cut thing that probably cost more than my entire restaurant deposit, videos of her and Cole slow dancing while everyone circled around like she'd just been crowned queen. Then I saw it, a photo from my younger cousin Chloe, the one I always thought was the honest one, time-stamped exactly 2:47 p.m. Right when my grand opening began, with a caption that said, "When the whole fam comes through for Hannah, best engagement party ever, family love wins. The whole fam, including my parents, clearly visible raising their glasses, the same people who drilled into me that blood is thicker than water, and that you always show up for family. Turns out family has tears, and I just found out where I ranked. I drove home in silence wearing the same emerald dress, makeup smudged from heat and tears I refused to shed in front of Eddie, and the apartment felt even smaller than usual after spending all day at the restaurant. I couldn't sleep, just lay there replaying every holiday, every dinner, every time I bent over backward for Hannah, like when she needed someone to dog sit for 2 weeks while she vacationed in Bali, and I did it even though I'm allergic and had to take antihistamines the whole time. When Hannah borrowed my car and brought it back with an empty tank and a random scratch on the bumper, I brushed it off just like I did when she forgot my birthday 3 years straight while I never once missed hers, always telling myself she was just busy, and that this was what normal family stuff looked like. But Sunday morning hit me with a flood of texts asking what time I'd be joining them for the day after brunch at her future in-laws' place, as if I'd been celebrating with them yesterday, as if my absence had just slipped their minds and could be patched up with mimosas and fake smiles. I ignored every message and went straight to the restaurant instead, throwing myself into prep for Monday's soft launch. Real customers, paying customers, people who actually wanted to be there. And the lunch rush blew right past anything I imagined. Every seat full. Yelp reviews rolling in with 4 and 5 stars praising the food and the vibe and the tiny details I obsessed over. Patricia from the vintage shop showed up again with 3 friends, and those college kids from Saturday came back dragging their parents, who immediately booked reservations for the following week. By Tuesday we got a catering request for a corporate event. Wednesday a food blogger asked to interview me, and by Thursday our reservation list was packed 6 weeks out. Meanwhile my phone just kept lighting up with family messages. Dad calling me dramatic, Mom insisting I was stirring up conflict for no reason, Ryan sending me inspirational articles about forgiveness, and finally Hannah texting, "Can't believe you're making my engagement about you. Grow up, Ida." That was the moment I blocked the family group chat. Then I blocked every one of them individually. The quiet that followed felt like stepping out into fresh air after being stuck underwater. 3 weeks into Sage and Time's life, a critic from the city's most respected food magazine came in undercover. Eddie recognized her from Instagram and nearly lost it, but dinner went flawlessly, and her review dropped the next Tuesday with the headline, "Sage and Time, the neighborhood gem that deserves citywide recognition." Overnight, our reservation book filled up for a month and a half. I hired 2 more line cooks, another server, and a full-time bartender. The numbers actually looked good. Donna Hood, my accountant, kind, sharp, and endlessly patient, called to congratulate me and casually mentioned it was time to start thinking about expansion. Expansion. A month earlier I'd just been hoping to make it through the first quarter. One evening while I was doing inventory in the walk-in fridge, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Ida, it's Cole, Hannah's fiancé." I didn't say anything, I just waited. He started explaining that things were tense with the family, and that Hannah really wanted me at the wedding, that she'd been crying for days, and asked if we could talk. "Did she ask you to call me?" I said, and after a beat he admitted she didn't know he was calling but that he hated seeing her so upset. "You're her sister. Tell Hannah if she wants to talk, she can call me herself. She knows where I work. I'm here 6 days a week." I hung up. 2 days later a wedding invitation showed up by certified mail, as if they were worried I'd pretend it never arrived. The envelope was cream and overly ornate, the calligraphy so fancy I had trouble even recognizing my name. The wedding was 3 months away at a vineyard in Napa. Inside was a little card assigning me to table 17, the table for distant cousins and co-workers, according to all Hannah's wedding planning stories. Her maid of honor was her college roommate. Her bridesmaids were her sorority sisters. Not a single place for the sister who shared a bedroom with her for 16 years. I checked no, sealed the RSVP and sent it back without a note. Mom called from Dad's phone, clearly hoping I wouldn't notice the number. I answered while plating a special for table 6. "Ida Elizabeth Morgan, what is wrong with you?" She snapped, voice shaking, demanding to know why I would decline my own sister's wedding. "I have a restaurant to run," I told her. "For one day you can't close?" She shot back and I asked why I should shut down my business for people who couldn't spare 3 hours for mine. Silence. Then she tried saying it was different, that the engagement party had been last minute, and I told her it had been booked 3 weeks out, I saw the contract date posted online, and that Hannah kept it quiet because she knew people might choose my opening instead. More silence, muffled whispers, and then Mom saying Dad wanted to talk. I said I didn't want to talk to him and I hung up. Then I blocked his number too. The strange thing about cutting out your whole family is that it leaves a big empty stretch of space in your life, and I filled every bit of it with the restaurant. New dishes, staff relationships, learning regulars' names. Eddie became not just my sous chef but a real friend, and his girlfriend Tanya started handling our social media. The college kids, whose names I now knew were David, Sophie, and Martinez, came every Friday and brought different friends each time. Patricia introduced me to her book club, and suddenly I had a standing monthly reservation for 12 women who debated novels over wine and always ordered dessert. They sort of adopted me. They asked about my life, cheered with every good review, and even brought me peonies when I mentioned once that I loved them but never bought them for myself. These people, these supposed strangers, showed up more than my own family ever had. 2 months after opening, an email arrived from a TV production company saying someone had nominated me for a new cooking competition show, and asking if I'd do a preliminary interview. I took the call on my day off, sitting in my apartment, which I'd finally had the time and energy to decorate the way I wanted. The producer, this rapid-fire talker named Renee, broke down the show's pitch for me. Established chefs going head-to-head in challenges tied to their restaurant specialties. And she kept saying my story was exactly the kind of thing networks drooled over. Self-made, critically praised, a strong local following, classic underdog energy. I told her I didn't really feel like an underdog anymore, and she said that made it even better, that I was living proof the whole hard work pays off American dream thing could actually happen. I almost laughed at that, considering I'd only gotten here by cutting loose the people who were supposed to cheer me on. The preliminary interview turned into a callback, the callback into a screen test, and soon I was staring at a contract with a shooting schedule that meant closing Sage in time for 3 weeks while filming in Los Angeles. Eddie agreed to run the kitchen while I was gone. Tanya would keep the social media updated, and I prepped as much as possible so we could run a tighter menu built around dishes the line cooks had fully nailed. The day before I flew out, a text came in from a number I didn't recognize. "Ida, it's Chloe. I know you blocked everyone, but I got a new phone. Please don't block this one. I need to tell you something." I stared at it before writing back, "What?" Then she told me Mom and Dad were telling everyone I'd had some sort of breakdown and cut ties because I couldn't handle Hannah's success, that they were saying I needed professional help, and that Hannah was backing the story. The audacity shouldn't have shocked me anymore, yet somehow it did. Of course it couldn't be that they'd finally shown me where I fell on their priority list. It had to be that I was unstable. I thanked her for the heads up and told her I was doing just fine. "I know," she said. "I follow the restaurant on Instagram. It looks amazing. I'm sorry I didn't come to the opening. I should have chosen differently." "You were 17," I wrote back. "Don't apologize for other people's choices." "I'm 18 now," she said, "and I can make my own. Can I come visit sometime? I want to try the food." I sent her the reservation link. Chloe showed up that Saturday with her girlfriend, a quiet art student named Lena. They ordered half the menu, took pictures of everything, and Chloe cried a little when she tasted the braised short ribs, telling me they reminded her of the Sunday dinners we used to have before everything got messy. "Do you miss them?" she asked, nudging at her pasta with her fork, and I really thought about it before saying I missed the idea of them, the family I thought I had, but not the real version, not being an afterthought or constantly lowering my expectations or acting grateful for scraps of consideration. Lena, who had barely spoken the whole meal, chimed in to say her therapist liked to remind her that refusing unacceptable behavior, even from family, especially from family, was sometimes the most radical thing a person could do. Smart therapist, I told her. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm I hadn't realized I'd been craving. I'd roll into Sage in time around 4:30 every morning, the sky still dark, and there was something almost meditative about chopping vegetables in a silent kitchen with nothing but the hum of refrigerators and my knife tapping the cutting board. No family drama, no texts begging explanations, no guilt-soaked conversations. Just me, my ingredients, and the work that lit me up. My Instagram following climbed past 15,000, mostly food lovers and locals cheering us on, and I posted behind-the-scenes shots of new dishes, goofy staff moments, even the occasional sunset from the kitchen window. People commented with real curiosity about technique and ingredients, and they shared their own experiences eating at the restaurant. Then Ryan found the account. My brother, who hadn't spoken a word to me since I blocked everyone, started dropping comments under every post. Not supportive, not apologetic, just passive-aggressive jabs like, "Looks great. Wish the family could have been part of this journey. And Mom would love this dish if you ever let her try it." A few relatives I barely remembered gave his comments pity likes, and I deleted them all and blocked him there too. Eddie noticed me grinding my teeth as I scrolled one afternoon and guessed it was family stuff. "Ryan's decided to stalk me online now," I muttered, slamming my phone down harder than I meant to. It's like they can't just let me live, they have to watch, judge, wait for me to fall apart or crawl back. He suggested making the account private, but I snapped that I wasn't going to hide my success just because they couldn't handle it. This was my space, my work, and they didn't get to invade it. Tanya overheard and offered to manage my social media completely, to filter comments, block whoever needed blocking, and leave me free to focus on cooking. It was a perfect fix, and within days the comment section felt clean and peaceful again. Tanya had a sharp, witty style for responding to real questions and a ruthless ability to delete anything dripping with family manipulation. The critics' review didn't just bring customers, it brought schools' attention too. Johnson & Wales asked if I'd speak to their graduating class about entrepreneurship, and the International Culinary Center invited me to do a cooking demo. These were the kinds of opportunities one imagined back in those 5 years of grinding through shifts in other people's kitchens while stashing away every dollar for my own place. The first speaking gig terrified me more than opening night ever did. 40 students stared at me while I stood behind a podium clutching note cards I'd rewritten half a dozen times. I meant to talk about business plans and menu development, but instead I found myself being brutally honest. The hardest part of opening Sage in Time, I told them, wasn't money or permits or the long hours. It was realizing the people I assumed would show up for me weren't going to, and then learning to accept that and move forward anyway. Success, I said, tasted even sweeter when you earned it on your own terms and shared it with people who genuinely wanted to be part of it. The applause wasn't polite. It felt heartfelt, heavy, real. Afterward, several students came up with stories of their own. Families who didn't get their culinary dreams, parents pushing them toward real careers, siblings mocking their passion. I gave them my card and meant it when I said to keep in touch. One student, a quiet girl named Kim with knife skills I'd noticed during the demo, asked if I was hiring. She graduated in 3 weeks and wanted to work somewhere that valued dedication more than connections. "Send me your resume," I told her, "and include 3 dishes you're genuinely proud of." She joined the team the next month and quickly became one of my most dependable prep cooks, always showing up early, staying late, and asking the kind of thoughtful questions that made it clear she was thinking beyond just following instructions. The show filmed in October, a non-stop 3-week whirlwind of competition, brutally early call times, and challenges intentionally crafted to push us right up against our limits. I managed to make it to the final 4 before getting knocked out in the dessert round, which had always been my weakest area and which I'd admitted from the start. Meanwhile, back home, Eddie ran Sage in Time with the precision of a seasoned commander. He called me every night after service with updates, covers, staff performance, little hiccups he'd smoothed over. Kim apparently thrived under the pressure, taking on new responsibilities and proving she could hold the line during the busiest rushes. When I finally came home, exhausted but buzzing with adrenaline, the restaurant hadn't just survived my absence, it had kept its reputation spotless. And once the show aired in January, everything exploded. Overnight, Sage in Time wasn't just a neighborhood favorite anymore. It became a full-blown destination. Food tourists drove in from all over the state, the waitlist ballooned to 3 months, and I had to bring on even more staff and introduce a reservation lottery just to keep things manageable. A San Francisco restaurant group reached out about franchising. A publisher asked if I'd consider writing a cookbook. 2 different investors wanted meetings about opening a second location. The success felt unreal and completely earned at the same time, the natural payoff for years spent grinding, saving, and building. Hannah's wedding came and went. I saw pictures posted by distant relatives and family friends. The vineyard was gorgeous, the flowers immaculate, and Hannah glowed in a gown that probably cost more than my commercial oven. I felt nothing, no sadness, no anger, not even triumph. Just a distant awareness that an event had occurred involving people I no longer recognized as mine. What blindsided me was the fallout. Emma texted me details I never asked for. How Mom gave a teary speech about hoping her daughters would reconcile, How Dad got drunk and told anyone who'd listen that I'd always been stubborn and difficult. How Hannah cried prettily while saying she tried everything to fix things. Their narrative turned me into the villain. The ungrateful daughter, the jealous sister, the cold-hearted family deserter. They could think whatever they wanted. I was too busy building something worthwhile. But the whisper campaign spilled into places I hadn't expected. Suddenly distant relatives began dropping negative reviews on Yelp and Google. Nothing overtly traceable, but unmistakable in their timing and tone. Overpriced. Owner is icy and unfriendly. Plenty of restaurants around with owners who actually value family. Tanya spotted the pattern quickly and flagged the posts. Most were removed by fraud detection, but a few lingered. Each one felt like a paper cut, small but collectively painful. One evening Eddie found me sitting on an overturned crate in the walk-in cooler, staring into space. Taking a break from reality? He asked, quietly closing the door behind him. Did you see the review from today? I asked. The one calling me difficult to work with based on personal family knowledge? He nodded. Tanya already reported it. It'll be gone tomorrow. He sat on a case of wine like he was settling in. You know what my mom said when I quit banking to cook? She said I was throwing away my future for a pipe dream, that I'd come crawling back within a year. That was 8 years ago. She still introduces me as her son who used to work in finance. I asked if it still hurt and he said yeah sometimes, but then he comes here and creates something beautiful that people pay to eat, and he remembers their limitations aren't his. Then he looked straight at me and said, your family's inability to see your worth doesn't shrink it. It just exposes their poverty of vision. His words helped, but the attacks kept trickling in. Each fake review felt like another attempt to chip away at what I'd built, the success they clearly couldn't stomach. I started keeping records, screenshots with timestamps, building a file in case I needed a lawyer for defamation or harassment. Then Patricia came by during a slow Tuesday lunch with an idea. Her nephew, the one she'd mentioned months ago, had graduated recently and was apparently a wizard with digital marketing and reputation management. He'd helped rescue a friend's bakery from a similar smear campaign. Want him to give you a call? She asked. His name was Derek and he worked fast. Within a week he'd scrubbed the fake reviews, set up a monitoring system to catch suspicious activity, and boosted genuine feedback so effectively that the negativity vanished under the weight of authentic praise. The good reviews outnumbered the bad by such a massive margin that the sabotage became irrelevant. The restaurant has a great story, Derek told me during our final call. Talented young chef, built from nothing, beloved by the community. That's the story people want. Not whatever petty drama someone's trying to stir up. He was right. Our reputation didn't just recover, it grew stronger. The smear attempt backfired, pushing real supporters to be louder, prouder, more loyal. 3 days after the wedding, Mom walked through the door of the restaurant. I was on the line when Eddie came into the kitchen wearing a tight, uneasy expression. Your mom's here, he said quietly. She didn't have a reservation, but she was insisting on talking to me. Tell her we're fully booked, I said. Eddie gave me that cautious look, but I repeated myself. If she wants to speak with me, she can book a table online like everyone else. He nodded and walked out, returning a few minutes later to report that she said she'd wait and was now parked at the bar. I went right on prepping the salmon for table 8, keeping my motions crisp and steady. How long until the last reservation is seated? I asked. About 90 minutes, he said. Then she can wait 90 minutes, I answered. And she did. I watched her now and then through the kitchen window, sitting there with a drink she barely touched. She looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I just grown used to not seeing that familiar expression of tight-lipped disappointment she always wore when she looked at me. When the final order went out and the kitchen was spotless, I finally walked out to the bar. Mom straightened immediately, posture snapping into place like she'd rehearsed whatever she was about to say. Can we talk? She asked. In private. Anything you need to say can be said right here, I told her. Her jaw tightened. Fine. Jessica's marriage is in trouble. Cole's been distant ever since the wedding. She needs her family and you're being selfish. I actually laughed. It wasn't intentional, it just slipped out. So let me get this straight, I said. You came to my restaurant, waited an hour and a half to inform me that Jessica, the same Jessica who couldn't spare 3 hours to come to my grand opening, now wants me to help prop up a marriage that's falling apart after 3 months. You're her sister, Mom snapped, and you're mine. Funny, I said, how that only seems to matter when she needs something from me. Her eyes filled with tears, real or staged. I honestly didn't care anymore. When did you become so cold? She whispered. The day I opened this place to an empty room because my entire family chose a party over a milestone I spent 5 years crawling toward, I said. That's when I stopped being cold and started seeing things clearly. We made a mistake, she said. We apologized. No, you didn't. Not once. You made excuses, you downplayed what happened, you told me to get over it, you called me unstable, but none of you have ever said, we were wrong. We hurt you. We're sorry. Because deep down you don't think you were wrong at all. She fumbled for her purse, face blotchy. I won't stand here and be attacked. Then leave, I said. You're good at that. She left quietly, closing the door with this controlled, deliberate gentleness that somehow stung more than a slam. Tanya approached from the other end of the bar, wiped her hands and squeezed my shoulder. You okay, boss? She asked. Yeah, I said, and I realized I meant it. I really was. Spring arrived with a flood of rehearsal dinner bookings from wedding parties, something I'd never intended to offer but couldn't ignore because the money was too good. Eddie had clever ideas for making the events flow without messing up normal service. Meanwhile, Chloe and Lena started stopping by twice a month. They became my only real connection to the family, and even then it was filtered. Chloe never shared details unless I asked, which I rarely did. One night in late April, she mentioned casually that Hannah was getting divorced. I looked up from the menu draft I was adjusting. That was quick, I said. Cole found messages from her ex, Chloe explained. Apparently it had been going on since before the engagement. He moved out last week. I said I was sorry out of habit. Are you? She asked. I thought about it. I'm sorry anyone has to go through a divorce, but I'm not sorry specifically about Hannah. She made her decisions. Mom thinks you should reach out, Chloe said. Be the bigger person. Mom can think whatever she wants. Chloe grinned. Told her you'd say that. Lena bet me $20 you would. Summer came with a James Beard nomination for Best New Restaurant. I didn't win, but just being nominated felt like the industry itself had stamped a seal of worth on everything we'd built. Eddie and I went to the ceremony in Chicago, and when we came home the staff surprised us with a full-on celebration. The restaurant was thriving, profitable, respected, joyful. That's when Dad showed up. Not like Mom. He didn't wait politely at the bar. He barged straight into the kitchen during the Friday dinner rush, ignoring Eddie trying to stop him, and planted himself right in my line of sight as I plated a duck breast. We need to talk, he declared. I'm working, I said. Make a reservation. I didn't even look up, too focused on getting the garnish just right. This can't wait. Your mother's in the hospital. My hands froze. What happened? Stress-induced heart palpitations, he said. The doctor says she has to reduce the stress in her life. This situation with you is killing her, Ida. I set my tweezers down and finally met his eyes. If Mom has health concerns, she should listen to her doctor and manage her stress. What she shouldn't do is use her health as leverage to make me ignore years of unacceptable behavior. Your sister's marriage collapsed. Your mother is sick. Don't you feel any compassion? I feel plenty of compassion, I said. What I won't do is keep setting myself on fire so people who never show up for me can stay warm. That's not fair, he shot back. You're standing in my kitchen during a rush refusing to leave, I said. You need to go. Not until we settle this. I turned to Eddie. Call the police. Tell them we have a trespasser refusing to leave private property. Dad's face went beet red. I'm your father. And I'm asking you to leave my restaurant, I said calmly. Those two facts aren't in conflict. He stormed out before Eddie actually made the call, but not before knocking over a container of prep sauce like a toddler having a meltdown. The entire kitchen went silent for a beat after the door shut. Then Tanya began a slow clap, and the rest of the staff joined in. I shook my head, but I couldn't stop the smile creeping across my face. All right, we've got tickets up, back to work. Later that night, after the last table cleared out, I sat alone in the dining room with a glass of good wine and took in everything I'd built. The exposed brick walls I'd fought the contractor to preserve, the vintage light fixtures I'd dug up at an estate sale and had rewired, the menu board Eddie updated every day with his increasingly artistic chalk sketches. It all glowed softly around me, warm and earned. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Grandma wants to meet just you and her. Says she has something to tell you. Grandma Reed? I wrote. Yeah. She told Mom and Dad they're idiots and that she doesn't blame you for cutting them off. Her words. Not mine. Interesting. Fine. Here. Lunch Tuesday. Tell her to make a reservation. Tuesday, right on the dot. She walked in wearing her pearls and a cardigan even though the heat was pushing 90. I seated her at my favorite corner table and brought her a glass of sweet tea before she even asked. You remembered? She said, surprise softening her voice. I remember a lot, Grandma. She got straight to business. Your parents raised you girls wrong. I told your mother, but she wouldn't listen. She thought treating you the same was the same thing as being fair. It isn't. Hannah demanded attention, so she got it. You deserved attention, and instead you got leftovers while she got the feast. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. I should have said something years ago, Grandma went on. But I'm a coward in my old age, and I didn't want to rock the boat. Turns out the damn boat needed rocking. Then she pulled an envelope from her purse. Your grandfather and I talked before he passed about what we wanted our legacy to be. Money split evenly. Sentimental things divided by meaning. But there was one thing we disagreed on. She slid the envelope across the table. He wanted your mother to have the lake house. Neutral territory for family gatherings. I wanted it to go to someone who'd appreciate it. Someone who works for things instead of expecting them. I won. Inside was the deed. The lake house in Michigan. The 3-bedroom place where I'd spent childhood summers, now legally mine. Grandma, I can't. It's already done, she cut in. Has been for 6 months. I waited to tell you until I knew you'd survive cutting them off. Property comes with responsibilities. Does Mom know? She will when I'm dead, and the will is Reed. Should be entertaining. She gave me a wicked little smile. Now are you going to feed me or just stare? I hear the duck is excellent. I cooked her the best meal I've ever put on a plate. She ate every bite, complimented every detail, and left a crisp $100 bill on the table despite my protests. The lake house became my sanctuary on my weekly day off. Every Monday I drove up, cooked for myself, tinkered with new dishes, and sat on the dock watching the water slide past. Sometimes Chloe and Lena joined me. Sometimes Eddie and Tanya. Sometimes it was just me. It was on one of those quiet Mondays in September when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It's Hannah. I should have hung up. Instead, I asked how she got the number. Chloe, she said. Look, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to say something. Then I'll leave you alone. I didn't answer. I was jealous of you my whole life, she said. You were smart, talented, didn't need constant reassurance. And instead of dealing with my own insecurity, I pushed you into second place over and over. The engagement party. I knew exactly when your opening was. I moved it to that day on purpose because I couldn't handle the thought of you succeeding without me being the center of attention. I let the silence stretch. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I don't even deserve a reaction. But you need to know it was never because you weren't enough. You were better than me and I hated it. Hannah, don't. I said what I needed. Congratulations on everything. You earned it. She hung up before I could say anything. I sat on the dock until the sky went orange and then dark, watching the water move like nothing had changed. Her confession didn't erase anything. The hurt was still real. The patterns still existed. But it gave me something I hadn't known I needed, closure. Her brokenness didn't excuse what she did. But it finally freed me from wondering what I'd done wrong. The answer was nothing. I'd simply existed in a family that couldn't figure out how to love 2 daughters who needed different things. That fall, the restaurant group from San Francisco came back with an offer so good it almost scared me. 3 new Sage and Time locations across California. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. I'd stay in charge creatively. They'd handle operations. Eddie would run the original. I'd rotate between the new ones. It was bold, a little terrifying, and exactly right. The expansion announcement landed on the evening news. Regulars showed up with congratulations. Journalists asked for interviews. Investors requested meetings. Patricia's book club threw me a celebration with homemade banners. Chloe cried happy tears and told me Lena's parents wanted to invest. And from the rest of my biological family, silence. Blessed silence. Opening night of the San Francisco location. I stood in a gleaming kitchen 3 times the size of the original and felt that same cocktail of terror and exhilaration I'd tasted 2 years before. Eddie flew out. Tanya came. Patricia came. Even half my regular customers flew in and turned the event into a mini vacation. The dining room filled with people who'd become my chosen family. People who'd shown up for me again and again without resentment or obligation. As service kicked off and the kitchen roared to life, I saw that empty restaurant from my first opening in the back of my mind, the untouched champagne, the hollow disappointment, the aching realization that I'd been auditioning for love from people who were never going to give it. I'd simply chosen the wrong audience. These people, my staff, my regulars, the community I built, they were the ones who showed up without being asked. They celebrated without jealousy. They proved that family is who shows up, not who shares your blood. Calling out orders and watching my team move in perfect rhythm, something deep settled in my chest. I'd spent 5 years saving money to open a restaurant, but I'd spent my whole life saving pieces of myself for people who never valued them. And somehow that first disastrous opening had led to something better. A room full of people who wanted to be there because they cared, not because they felt obligated. The champagne from that night had eventually been shared with customers who became friends. The family-shaped void I'd carried for years had been filled with something sturdier. Relationships built on choice, on showing up, on genuine care. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Chloe. A photo of the original Sage and Time, packed from wall to wall. Caption: "We're holding it down. Go crush it." I smiled, slipped my phone away, and called out the next ticket. This was my family now. The one I chose. The one that chose me right back.